Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Curiouser and curiouser, but we will begin with the youngsters, with the youth. There's two statistics today that will upset anybody who cares about other people. 800,000 children mentally unwell in this country. That's the first official estimate of the nation's vulnerable minors. It comes from the Children's Commissioner for England in particular, and as you know, on this programme we have been routinely staggered by cuts to and inadequacies of the services in place to look after these children. Do you remember, was it about 18 months ago, and someone in a South London health authority told us that they'd had a 13-month appointment? They'd received a letter telling them that their child could see a CAMS, a child and young adult mental health service counsellor, after a 13-month wait. And if you're thinking about mental health, imagine what 13 months untreated, unaddressed, unheard could do to a poor kid. But I don't necessarily want to talk about that today. It's something else contained within the Children Commissioner's report, the Children's Commissioner report, and it features or focuses exclusively upon England. I'm pretty sure that some of the lessons and messages contained within the report will apply equally in Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland and everywhere else in these islands. But just to mention that by dint of the context of numbers, because in England alone, nearly 50,000 children in England are gang members. I want to know what that means. I actually want to know what that means in your world. There are attendant headlines such as children as young as 12 being used to sell drugs. Forgive me for being cynical, but there's nothing new there. And there are also warning signs you could look out for, if you would, to work out whether or not your child is in a gang. I've got loads of questions, but I don't want to do it in a lazy way, if you know what I mean by that. I don't want to do it in a kind... Don't ring me up if you've got no experience whatsoever of modern gangs to tell me that when you were 14, living in Hove, you used to regularly carry a Stanley knife around in case you bumped into any mods or rockers, okay? I'm talking specifically about the second decade of the 21st century now. If you have some insights from the first decade of the 21st century, then you're welcome. Any insights prior to that aren't insights at all. They're anecdotes, and they're mostly dull. So save yourself tuppence. 6 minutes after 10 is the time. The question I'd start with is, how hard is it not to join a gang? If you were growing up now, if I was growing up now in certain parts of town, I'll tell you why I want an answer to that question. It's because I'm quite naive, I think. I'm quite... idealistic wouldn't be quite the right word. I presume that it's not that difficult to rise above the fray. I think if I was a teenager growing up in a rough part of town, I'd be an idiot. I mean, I know that because when I was a teenager growing up in a smart part of town, I was an idiot. I can't see why I'd be any less of an idiot by dint of the postcode in which I resided. I'd be an absolute idiot. I would make my parents' life hell. Hopefully I'd grow out of it before I got myself into serious trouble or came to serious harm. But when I say I'm naive, what I don't mean is that I underestimate the lure of these gangs. What I mean is, presumably, if you're responsible and clear-headed, and you're not an idiot, then you can avoid the siren lure of the gangs. How hard is it to walk those streets without having to pledge affiliation to one group or another? Okay, that's question number one. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. And this is really something that demands a degree of experience, isn't it? So you are now in your 20s or your 30s, possibly your 40s, and you laugh at this middle-class bloke on the radio saying that it wouldn't be that difficult to avoid gangs. Give me a call, stop laughing, ring me, set me straight, 0345 6060 973. And then what does the word actually mean? I mean, that's the other area of interest. I have, like most people in my profession, I have a sort of overview of these issues. issues and some slightly lazy cliches that have been explained to me over the years. If you see some trainers slung over a telephone wire in a certain area, it is indicative of the fact that someone's selling drugs nearby and that they claim to have sort of territorial rights to that market. So I tick that off. I also know that there really are violent altercations built upon the postcode in which your home sits. I know that because of where I used to live. Again, actually, not the house and the flat that I lived in near Grenfell Tower, also the second of those properties, abutted onto one of the most troubled and dangerous estates in London. It's called the Mozart Estate. I think things are improving there, but there genuinely were kids getting stabbed, and one was shot on the street next to mine. And when I tried to look into it or find out a little bit more about it, some of the locals would very glibly and very casually just refer to it as a postcode thing, a postcode war. The idea that this gang here is W10 and that gang over there is W9 or W11. I'm not going to lie to you, I find that absolutely bonkers. But I've thought about it a lot in the intervening years, and actually, why is it bonkers? If you're going to, all this slightly ugly talk at the moment on the Brexit camp of you need to be a bit more patriotic and stop pointing out evidence and asking questions that they can't answer. If you're going to get a kind of upsurge of passion, and there's a court case, actually, a sentencing handed down yesterday where the defendant's lawyer said that the reason why he viciously assaulted a woman in a headscarf was because of some of the politicians in the Brexit debate whipping up that kind of sentiment. You don't have to agree. That's what the lawyer tried to argue in court while defending a vicious, violent, racist thug, sort of claimed that he'd been inspired by politicians. I can't think of any names off the top of my head that might fall into that category. But if you think of the things that relatively educated grown-ups can be persuaded to get passionate and violent about, why is a postcode any weirder than a football team or indeed a political party? You know, it's sometimes tempting to see these kids as being alien, as being somehow different from you and from me, as pursuing. That's why they like to use the word feral quite often, I think, as if you can almost dehumanize these young people. Well, sorry, but, there are middle-class football hooligans who'll wrap a bicycle chain around somebody's neck based upon the colour of the shirt that they're wearing. So getting violent about a postcode is odd and wrong and chilling, but it is not emblematic of difference from the mainstream, difference from the rest of us. You see violence now at Donald Trump's rallies. How can that be in any way classed as acceptable or normal? And then you stick teenage gang members on an entirely different planet. You see what I mean? I think you do. I think that makes sense. So how hard is it not to join? If I was growing up now in parts of London or Manchester or Birmingham, how hard would it be for me? Let's just use me as an example, okay? If I was 30 years younger, if I was 15 years old, and I was living on that estate next to where I used to live, or I was living in, it would still be Handsworth, would it, and Lascelles in Birmingham, or Toxteth up in Liverpool, I don't know, Moss Side in Manchester, and if I was growing up in those areas and I was 15 years old, how hard would it be for me not to join a gang? I would love you to try to answer that question if you think you can, and that way mums and dads can get involved as well. It doesn't have to be just the young people or the ex-gang members or the current gang members. How hard would it be not to get caught up in it? Because until you can answer that question, you can't properly offer any understanding of the issue or any help to the people caught up in it. How hard would it be? Call me now, tell me. 0345 6060 973. Also, what does it mean? Presumably, the criminality that all of these gangs involve hinges around street crime and drug dealing. I presume it does. And the stories I've been told over the years when we've addressed this issue in the past is you see someone driving a very fancy car, and in your community nobody else has achieved that form of material success legally, so the temptation to go down the illegal road, down the criminal road, is immense. We are increasingly, I want to try to talk later today about this subprime crisis that's coming up around cars, because it's not just young teenagers who have their heads turned by Audis or Mercedes. It goes right up to the very top of society. Loads of people driving around London and Manchester and Birmingham, Edinburgh, Glasgow and Cardiff today in cars that they can't afford. There are loads of them, but they're going to work. They're law-abiding citizens. They've just bought a car on loans that if the interest rates shift north even incrementally, they're going to be absolutely bladdered, and that's a looming economic crisis that we're going to talk about. But again, if you're a kid and you're looking at an Audi or a fancy car and you think, I want one of those, you're not different from the account manager in North Wales who's borrowing it with money he can't really afford. Your temptation is the same. It's just the mode by which you try to feed that temptation that differs. So if actually, as I do this introduction, a theme emerges that I didn't know was going to emerge, which is, can we talk about gangs and gang members in a way that recognises that they are human beings like us and our children, please? Rather than talking about them as if we're sort of visiting a safari park or a laboratory and discussing something that's indicative of a different species or a notion of feralness. Is it feralness or ferality? I'll find out during the travel news. Anyway, your phone lines are open. That's what I want to know. How hard would it be not to join a gang? And what do gangs do? 0345 6060 973. And I want you to tell me your story. I want you to tell me what it was that drew you into that world and what happened to you when you were in that world. Because the biggest danger of all, I think, is for us to discuss it in a way that sees it as utterly incomprehensible. I'm pretty clear that the temptations of material rewards, the temptations of safety in numbers, the familiarity of feeling as if you belong in a group, in a community, the substitute family that you get in some of these contexts, I can see that being incredibly seductive. So let's not pretend that these people aren't human beings just like the rest of us. Let's just ask what it is about their lives that leads them to make choices we find so bizarre. It's 10:15. 46,000 children estimated to be gang members in England alone. What does that word mean? Those two words, gang member, or that one word, gang. What does it actually mean? And how hard is it to avoid? Simone speaks from personal experience. Some of these kids are facing physical harm or death by not joining these gangs. Death, Simone, really? It's not always a choice. I know from friends and family how hard it is and the effect it has on those families also. And that's an angle I'd like to explore with your help. Think about being a mum or a dad. And it's the hardest thing, isn't it, about being a parent? That realisation that comes really, really early, that you can't make their choices for them. You can't live their lives for them. Even if you perhaps did have the experiences that would benefit them, you can't somehow, by a process of osmosis, force them to learn from your mistakes. So I'd love to talk to you if you've got a child in this position and you feel powerless. There's nothing you can do about it. Michael's in Tottenham. Michael, what can you tell us?
Morning, James.
Hello, mate.
First time caller, just put that out there.
Good man.
Basically, I wouldn't say I'm a gang member. I was part of a gang, but I grew up in a part of North London where, do you know what? To be honest, sometimes it's like you as a person, you may not think you're in a gang.
Yeah.
But, like, when I look back on it now of, you know, the people I was in or the amount of people who were together when friends and other friend circles come together, from the outside looking in, people would have looked and thought, oh, look at those guys, they're a gang. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
A lot of the people that I was growing up with, it was just, we just lived on the same estate. So to us, we're just having fun. We're just all together. But you start to just sort of get that tag. People see you and be like, oh, those are such and such from such an area. That's those boys. And all of a sudden you sort of pick up a tag that way.
You could be one or the other, I presume, that you could award yourself a tag, so to speak, and start calling yourself by a name.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I'm speaking like from my experience.
Yeah, fair enough.
My friends, we would never say, you know, we would like the estate I grew up on was called Ferry Lane in Tottenham. So people would be like, oh look, those are the Ferry Lane boys.
Okay.
We wouldn't necessarily refer to ourselves as a name. We were just kids just looking to have fun, sort of thing.
And how would you identify simply just by having grown up there or having lived there for long enough to know that everybody else is from the same?
Yeah, it's just we'd all go to, well, we sort of drifted apart as we got older, but we was in nursery together, we was in reception, we grew up together. So when we went secondary school, everyone sort of got close with, say, one or two people, and they would bring them and say, oh, this is my friend from school. So
well, I'm not hearing anything that worries me yet. I'm not hearing anything that gets filed under criminal or negative.
Yeah, no. So that's sort of when we were young. As we started to get old, like my one's not. It's not it's not going to get too negative. What I wanted to say is, like you were saying about you can't make the children's decisions for them and stuff like that. Luckily for me, when I got to sort of 15, 16, I really wanted to be a football player. So when everyone sort of deviated one way, I sort of looked and thought, you know, I'm out late, running around, getting into fights, and I was thinking, you know, this isn't going to help me get to where I want to go. So I was lucky where I had a good head on my shoulders, which
and you had purpose and ambition. So just take me back then to what you just described as starting to go down the wrong road. What would your friends... Because I get it now. So we're talking about sort of year 7, year 8. You just all come from the same estate. Most of you are going to the same secondary school. You all hang out together. There's strength in numbers. You want to have a game of football. You need a bunch of lads. You can't sort of keep kicking a ball against the wall. So that's not even what I'd call a gang in the sense, the criminal sense. That's just geographical coincidence. And then something happens. That group that's coalesced around geography and school, some of them start what, Michael?
Yeah, then all of a sudden, you know, you get to those 15, 16 years of age, and then you start going like to parties, let's say. Like, so there was one time we went to a party in Hackney, and at the time, like traditionally, like Tottenham Hackney, then it was no-go. Like, it's not how Hackney's trendy now. We just wouldn't go to Hackney. Or if you went to Hackney, you know, you had to go with someone, or you might...
But that's it. So that's it. That's the point at which you become, for want of a better word, that's the point at which you become a gang member, even though you don't feel that you're a gang member, even though you haven't given yourself a handle of being a gang member. You just described to me, as a resident of Tottenham, feeling unable to travel to a neighbouring suburb of London, a neighbouring corner of North London, and that is utterly alien to my experience, and the way you described it was so matter-of-fact and so commonplace that I think between us we've made a powerful point without trying to. Don't you? Because it's normal for you to say to me, no, I'm from Tottenham, James, I could never go to Hackney. You just say that as if it's the most normal thing in the world. That's the most abnormal thing from where I'm sitting. From your side looking in, but from where we were, it was just, you know, like, just as far as you remember, like the sky is blue, that sort of thing. So it was. And what would happen? I mean, what were you worried about in Hackney? What could happen in Hackney that wouldn't happen in Tottenham? How would the negativity manifest itself? All right. So
for an example, this is an example. We used to go to a football academy which was based in Hoxton. So there was a time where one of my friends who was on the football academy at the time, he was from Tottenham as well.
Yeah.
He got into words with another guy.
So that's like fronting up to each other in the street. It starts off by saying, "What are you doing here?" or what, and then because you're young men and there's testosterone involved, you're not going to let someone talk to you like that. So you bridle back.
It can be as little as anything, and then in the end, it ended up with. On another day, a few of them saw me and my friend. It was only the two of us.
Yeah.
So we got into a fight. We got beat up basically. It was like 5-6-on-2. My friend got stabbed in the leg. But all of that was just, it literally just came out of nothing.
But you're talking again as if it's the most normal thing in the world.
Yeah, no, well, it's just sort of, like, as I said, it's not a world that I was in a long time. It's not.
But you didn't choose to be in it. You didn't choose to be in it. You kind of got dragged into it. You managed to stay out of the bigger stuff, but I presume, and I make no apology for this call taking so long, Michael, because I am learning from every syllable you share with us. I presume you have friends, maybe the one who got stabbed in the leg, who went in the other direction. I mean, you've told me they went in the other direction. What does that mean? How does that escalate into criminality and more obvious gang-related behaviour?
Like, to be honest, to go into those realms, that's where I sort of literally cut it off.
Right.
So I was just like, you know what, I want to do this, so I'm going to be in bed early. I need to be up early so I can be training, so I can do X, Y, Z. So even though now I see certain people, they might be doing what they're doing, but I don't really need to know the details.
Fine.
So I see them, it's like, oh, you're right, how's mum, X, Y, Z. And we just keep it like that. But
your unspoken knowledge is that they're probably dealing or involved in something else that's illegal, or not.
Yeah, well, it could be. Again, maybe it's ignorance now, but I'm an older man. I'm 32 now, and I've got a wife. I've got two young I've got 2 children who are growing up as well. So my thing at the moment is I'm just focusing on them, because, as I always say to my wife, when they become impressionable, sort of secondary school age,
yes,
I want us to be out of Tottenham. I want us to be out of London, just to give them. I don't want them to have to necessarily have to go through that, because I was headstrong, or was able to see, you know what, this isn't where I want.
I wouldn't say headstrong. I'd say you had strength of character. You're probably too modest to recognise this, but you can't be supremely confident that your children are going to be possessed of the same level of strength of character, and that isn't a criticism of them or of you. It's just a reflection of the reality that you have experienced.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I don't want them to. I'd rather take that choice away from them. It might sound selfish, but
no, mate, it doesn't sound. It sounds nothing of the sort. It's I mean, the footballing. I mean, it gave you the escape route. I'm going to presume it didn't work out completely. You didn't end up playing for Spurs or anything like that. But when
no, it worked out. It worked out good enough. You know, I play semi-professionally now.
Fair enough. No, that's me, Tol.
I work, yeah, so I studied in America. I had a football scholarship. I came back, played semi-professional, made good money, you know, enough to pay for my wedding and stuff.
Yes.
I met my wife through football. So, you know, having something to focus on, sort of, you know, sometimes I look back and I say, maybe I'm not a success because I didn't hit the heights I wanted to. But
no, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't, because you've described it as an escape route from the absence of choice that many of your friends and neighbours would have had, and that for me is what it's always about. It's always about choices, and the fewer choices a kid has, the slower we should be to condemn him for going down one of the few paths that were open to him. I just wanted to establish that path that opened up to you did actually lead out of the gang culture, for want of a better word. And I mean, if you couldn't get out of Tottenham when your children reached that age, what could you do to help them?
Us, really, just all you can really do is talk to them.
Yeah.
I'm very much like where we live at the moment. You know, it's like in a little estate, so we're out on the square.
Yeah.
So all the younger children play together. There are and then you see the older ones who used to be their age, but they're of an age now where they're starting to group together. So
yes,
as much as I can, I just try and be out there with them. I'm talking with the children.
Oh man, you're a star. Seriously, I mean, it seems, sort of hearing it from you, it seems clear and even obvious. But goodness me, it's anything but when you're there. And of course, the problem is those older children who are just beginning to gather on the fringes of the green, as you describe it. They've got nowhere else to go. They've not got choices. It can sound a little bit pat, even a little bit Daily Mail, to talk about the disappearance of youth clubs and whatever else it might be, the modern equivalent of that. But one of the first areas to be hit by council cuts was youth services, and they've got nowhere else to go. So the importance of people like you in a community, even though it's self-appointed and entirely voluntary, you end up being another choice that the younger children have. They can see you, and they can see that side of the playground, for want of a better word, or they can see the older kids who are just beginning to get, I think I can use the word moody, just beginning to get a little bit of moody. Awful lot of love for you, Michael, online. What a guy, absolute star. I can really relate to this guy. James, I can't believe you've got a caller that actually understands this issue inside out, so I owe you for that, Michael, all right? We cut him off. It's 10:31. Trying to make sense of the numbers, trying to make sense of the stats, looking behind the headlines. And today's number is, well, it's remarkable, isn't it? Some sort of 50,000 children in England alone deserving of the description gang member. So we're doing two things. We're trying to work out exactly what that means. Michael, a magnificent first caller, but there's still plenty of room to add to what he told us. And we're also trying to work out how hard it would be not to join. It seems to me to be. They just sort of divide the world into three types of people when you're discussing something like this. People who don't understand it but really, really want to. People who don't understand it but really, really don't want to. They don't care about any sort of thinking related processes, and then people who do understand it, who can help out the first category but probably can't do much to help the second category, but we carry on chipping away in the hope that by a process of intellectual osmosis, the second category of people who currently hate thinking will eventually realise how important thinking is. Lee is in London. Lee, that's pretty broad. What can you tell us?
Well, you know, what I wanted to say to you and the lady I was just talking to,
yeah,
it's worse than it was before. Yeah?
Yeah.
In the sense of I'm an older, as they call it. In the gang, they'll say, oh, you're an older.
Yes.
That's what they call it. And I'm an older. And when I used to do the thing, it was more soft. Now, the police are kind of very slow to stop it. They can't do anything about it. If I'm riding down the road with my helmet off, they can't chase me, you know, because they're in fear of making an accident and then getting sued and things like that. And us youngsters know that. Whereas, you know, the years ago, that would never have happened.
There's fewer police on patrol as well, of course. But
Correct.
But this moped
So now,
crime is a bit of a growing epidemic.
You've got it. So now young kids are seeing a mobile that's £900 on street value. You're looking at something like 200. So instead of going to work for 50, 65 quid a day, I may as well just go and snatch someone's mobile, and I've got 200 quid a day. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it makes, you get what I'm saying?
Of course I do. And how does that relate to gang membership? So most of these instances,
So most
you
of the
tell me,
time,
you fill me in.
Most of the time, we've all got names that relate to the way we look or the way we might act, you know?
Yes.
So the dog's called Buster because the dog busts up people, you know?
Yes.
And it's like that, you get me?
Yes.
I'm quite nervous because I'm first-time caller.
Don't be.
Yeah.
It's crazy that you're describing stuff to me that is chilling, and you're nervous ringing up a radio station. It just goes to show, doesn't it, how different strokes for different folks. So how I mean, you move from those descriptors, so you know everyone's got names. But how do you know when you've actually? Can you remember when you realised you were in a gang, or is that a stupid question?
I used to do silly, bad things, you know, and
like you'd mug people, you street crime,
well, not mug people, but we used to just do, you know, like back then there was a lot of arcades.
Yes.
So we used to kind of like rob the arcades just when they're closing and things like that.
Okay.
You know.
And that would the group
I
that
don't
you
want to
did.
say too much because
I understand. I the group that you did that with would become your de facto gang.
Correct. So you'd have people who, like I say, we've all got names, but we've got names because the way we look. Someone might have big teeth, so we call him Beefy. You know, someone might, I don't know. Someone might ride a bike, so we call him Bikey. Come here, Bikey. You know, it's just like that. You know, everybody had a name because of what they do a lot.
And do you have enemies?
Yeah, you do have enemies.
How does that bit work, Lee?
If you're running a drug scheme,
yeah,
I'm over here and I'm earning like 5,000 a week on my patch here, and then two men come in and he's up in my stuff. He's down in my profit, if you know what I mean. So we have to go over and deal with them two guys.
What does that mean?
They ain't going to take that lightly.
Yeah.
Well, deal with them, and you know they ain't going to take that lightly. So they're going to come back for us, you know, and that's how it gets into the gun side of things, you know. It starts off with a little, you know, beat him up, and then if he don't learn from that, it's the stab, you know, and usually it ends up on the gun thing, you know, and you know, but that, you know, what I'm saying is it to stop it. You know, I've come out of it now, and I stay. You know, I've had help, a lot of help.
Who from?
From people I know. You know, who say to me, "Look, you know, Lee, you can't be doing that thing, man. You really can't." And as I get older now, I kind of understand how wrong it was. You know, when you're young, you're just in the moment. You're kind of, you know.
But there must have been people you knew when you were young who didn't go down this route. There must have been some kids who.
There was.
What was the difference? What was the difference between them and you?
I think they were more clever kids, if you know what I mean. They were able to work out. We was kind of like followers,
right?
If you know what I mean.
Yes.
Whereas they weren't followers. They were more. They knew what they wanted. Just like the guy said earlier on your program, he knew he wanted to be in football.
Yeah.
You know, so he followed the football. And not every kid, you know, when you're young, people don't even know at 35 what they want to do, let alone at 16, you know? At 16, you still don't know what you want to do, so you just follow the gang down that road, you know?
Because it's the path of least resistance. It's the flow of everyone else is flowing in that direction.
In your block of flats, you know, because for you to come out your front door, you've got to go past all these people, huh?
Yeah.
So if you're not with them, you're going to get beatings every day. It's going to be hard.
Just for refusing to join in. Just for refusing to join in. And when I say join in, I don't just mean refusing to stand with them on the same street corner. You'd have to go with them to rob the arcade at closing time.
Yeah, you know, even if you're standing there and you don't touch the person, you don't give the person a wallet.
Yeah.
You're still with them. You're still a number.
God.
And to the opposing person, if you've got 10 up that direction, you're still an extra number. It's still going to be fear because they're an extra number. So you ain't done nothing.
So we speak, when you turn on a radio program like this, you hear people talking about gangs and gang culture, and you hear them talking about it as if it's some sort of alien species. The way you've described it to me, and I'll take your call in conjunction with Michael, who was on before, it's a hell of a lot easier to go down the road you went down than the road he went down if you came from that sort of background.
Right. What I'm saying is, right now, like I said to you, I'm out of it now, yeah? I drive a motorbike, yeah? And I drive a motorbike and I'm telling you now, James, I just about survive, yeah? Right? Because I go out there on my motorbike, I try and deliver my little stuff on the motorbike and get my money that way, yeah? And I end up getting a ticket. Yeah?
Well, do you mean you're working as a courier, or do you mean you're still dealing drugs? Sorry to...
I'm just doing... No. I'm a courier. I'm doing a little bit of courier.
Okay.
Just delivering and keeping myself alive, yeah?
Yeah.
Right? Because I ain't got the cleverness for all these jobs, you know? Because I went down the wrong path. What I'm saying is, so can you imagine, I go out there and I'm busting myself doing the 7-8 hours to just get this parcel to the person, and I'm making my money, but they're making it the proper way now.
Yeah.
Yeah? And then it brings me to tears. It really does.
Go on, mate.
And then, you know, like, sorry, man.
That's all right. You take your time. You've got all the time you need. I promise.
Sorry, man. I've got to go.
Hang on, just give me another minute, because what you're telling me is that you're trying to play by the rules, you're trying to do your best, and then if something flies into your world like a parking ticket or a speeding fine or whatever it may be, it takes such a big chunk out of your income that it makes you wonder why you're bothering.
What am I doing it for? I was better the other way, wasn't I? You know?
No, you weren't.
I was better the other way. I was, you know.
Can I ask you a question that you don't have to answer? When you were in your sort of pomp, when you were right in the middle of the gang stuff,
right?
What sort of money would you be taking home at the end of a week?
Maybe about 400, something like that.
So you were never sort of covered in money.
No, but
you feel now that you're
the boss man. You know, you got to pay the boss man.
You're constantly close to the wheels coming off, metaphorically speaking.
Correct. You know.
You got any children, mate?
No.
All right.
No.
That's the thing. I've never heard this before. I'm going to level with you. The idea that you're doing the right thing, but no one really understands how hard it is to do the right thing, because you could just take one step back in life.
Correct.
And you'd have a few $100 clear at the end of every week.
The right feels like the wrong, you know, and the wrong feels like the right these days, man. You know? I
do now. I didn't before.
That's what it feels like out here, man.
I get that.
No.
And anyone who says to you, you've made the right choices, you're doing the right things, these are just words. These don't.
Yeah. I've had the greatest of people help me, and I've been lucky.
Well, that's what you need to focus on. You need to focus on the debt you owe to the people who've helped you, and however hard it gets, and however
man.
That's it. You just need someone to put some trust and love in, and that, like they've put in you.
I've had people die for me, man. I'm telling you, man. I had people die for me, man. You know. You know, man? I know, man. I gotta go. I'll see you, huh?
All right, you take it easy.
Okay.
And that took guts. It's going to sound like more platitudes and words, but that took more guts than I've got. It takes more guts than I see on a daily basis. And that's it. And you look me in the eye and tell me that if you're chances had been different, you'd been dealt a different set of cards at the beginning of your life that you could confidently state now that you wouldn't have played them like Lee did. I can't do that. I don't understand people who are absolutely certain, I'd have been upset, I'd have risen above it all. It's just this absence of any attempt to understand. And you heard a proud man there brought really low by trying to be law-abiding. Yeah, that talked about in the House of Commons. No one making any excuses at all for crimes committed by people involved in gangs, but if they have the grace and the decency and the courage to talk to us about what led them down that path and what led them out of it, I think we're quite privileged. I think we were quite privileged to hear from Lee. I know a lot of you do as well, and I hope you're still listening, mate, because there's a lot of love out there for you. The right feels like the wrong, and the wrong feels like the right these days. So, Stephen, that's going to stay with me for a while. What an incredibly brave call, says Sean from Lee. That is 2017 Britain right there. A proud man doing his best, but being pushed down and down. And oh my goodness, says Tanya, that guy trying hard to be a better man in a world that works against him. You gave him a voice. Well, yeah. That's actually remarkable. I've never known anything like that in response to that caller, because the honesty was so visceral, wasn't it? It was so raw. And that's what happens if you get the question right. This is not about an alien species making choices that other people will never be able to understand. This is about human beings dealt a different set of cards from me and you, and not knowing how to play them any more than we would. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. Alex is in Hoxton. Alex, what would you like to say?
Hello, James.
Hello, mate.
Basically, I myself, I wouldn't say I was in a hardened gang, but I was in a gang of group of friends of mine who we grew up on a council estate in Hackney. And basically, what we used to do was we used to, get up to a bit of mischief, like bunk the bosses, talk back and stuff like that. But it was never, ever the ideology that, we're going to go carry a knife and start hitting people. But the fact is that we were always seen as a gang from Hackney. Now, for me, I would say that I went to one of the roughest schools in Hackney. I went to a school called Homerton Boys, which is now shut down. Now, at the time, that school was basically the school where if you were naughty or you're not going to do anything for your life, you get put into that school. That school shut down around 2006, and we were all told that we have to move to schools across the borough. So basically across the borough and out of the borough. Majority of people that did move to new schools who were not familiar with, obviously, schools like example Tower Hamlets were all excluded and kicked out. I was one of them. I was told by my teacher that I would never ever succeed in life, and I was told that I'm going to end up in jail. Yes, that is true. Most people that from my set of my year group did go to jail.
When did it change? When did the paths diverge, Alex? What year?
The paths diverged when I met my schools officer, and he stated to me that, have you ever considered joining the police cadets? And I joined the police cadets, and I ended up being a police officer.
So you didn't have a criminal record, but you'd been expelled from school at this point.
Well, no, being expelled from school. But the problem is, and what I wanted to raise, is that a lot of these gang issues also stem from schooling. The fact is that a lot of kids are being referred to people referral units in their boroughs. Now, if you're aware of people referral units, it's kids who, from whatever ages, they're excluded from school. Majority of those kids, as soon as they go to people referral units, that's where they go lost in society, because the fact is there isn't really any support for them in those schools. If you don't turn up for school at the age of 13, nobody cares. So what ends up happening to you? You end up going to join these gangs.
Just back up a bit. I can see now, and goodness knows, after the calls we've taken already today, I can see a lot more clearly. But you speak again, like Michael did, of the effortlessness of that movement from not being a criminal to being a criminal. And I don't just mean gang membership. I mean, it's as if, and I've used the word choices, but it's as if you couldn't see any other path. These children can't see any other path in front of them.
Well, there isn't anything there. Like the current, like in majority of London boroughs, I'm not talking. I don't know about outside London, but there isn't any youth clubs. There isn't really anything to do. And even if there is a youth club, how can somebody who is from a rival area go to that youth club which is in the other area? He can't go there. So there's nothing for them to do. I'm lucky that I had the police cadets. But even that was a challenge for me because didn't get along. Yeah, I didn't get along with the other area where the police cadets was. I used to be escorted home every Wednesday.
Why? Because you were on a patch that you weren't supposed to be on because of the estate that you grew up in.
Yeah, I was from a different postcode.
So if they saw you, this again, the weirdest thing about all of these exchanges is that you're describing your normal. And to a lot of people listening, it's so extraordinarily not normal that I need to stop you occasionally and just get you to run back over that. So you would need a police escort, was it, presumably?
Yeah, we would need a police.
Because of the postcode in which you had lived previously, in which you lived at the time.
Quite a few of my friends even went to the army cadets and they used to get escorted back home because where they basically put the base is areas that we can't enter. So, example, it makes things very hard. I used to selectively go on buses in Hackney just to get to where I want to be. I used to go to Oxford Street on a Saturday at 9 o'clock sharp to get out at 9:30 because I knew that if I was there till 10, 11, 12, undesirable people will come and rob me and ask what area I'm from. And Hackney, when I was growing up, had problems with everybody in London. I don't know why, but we just did. And exactly from the same thing that my brother said from Tottenham, it's just we had problems. I didn't cause the problems, but I was part of the issue.
God, that's a powerful line as well, isn't it? I didn't cause the problems, but you're part of the issue by dint of geographical accident.
Yes, it's the case. And I just feel that school has a big part to play. Yeah, the police officer, my school's officer gave me the opportunity to be a police officer and go on to do better things in life. But the fact is that there's many young people who unfortunately don't have that issue, and I really do feel that schools should take some responsibility. Exclusion should be last resort because if
and they'd say that they are, and again they'd point at budget cuts and reduction in resources.
Unfortunately, James O'Brien have to say tough on that one because to be honest with you, you can't put a 13-year-old kid out on the street. You excluded him. What is he going to do at home?
Yeah.
Genuinely, what can a 13-year-old kid do at home when all these mates are in school? He has nothing. He's just going to go and see what we call olders and, keep himself busy until people like myself will finish school at 3 o'clock and join him. Do you understand what I mean?
Of course I do.
It's not fair on these kids. It's not fair. They're human beings like ours. We just need to give them opportunity. We need to coach them. We need to help them.
How old are you now? How old are you now?
I'm 25.
So is it worse or better than it was when you were 15?
Well, Hackney's changed. Hackney's very gentrified now. I can walk to any area and feel quite safe. But back in the day, I grew up in Hoxton. I couldn't go to Dalston. I couldn't go to certain parts of Shoreditch. I couldn't even go to anywhere in Hackney, to be fair. But now it's much better. But I'm maybe because I'm grown, but for the 17, 16, 15-year-olds...
It's choices. I hear you. And my goodness, what an adornment you are to the Metropolitan Police, Alex. I mean that most sincerely. Where the conversation about gangs has been, well, from my point of view, and I hope from yours if you're listening, it's been quite remarkable. The men that have rung in to speak to me have made an awful lot of scales fall from an awful lot of eyes, and also engendered quite a lot of warm thoughts, bearing in mind that these are people who either managed to avoid that path or, in the case of Lee, who made a contribution to the programme that's right up there with the ones I will never forget, have come out the other side. And what's the point in trying to be a better person if it leaves you feeling worse than you did before? And that's a question. It's like everything else we talk about on the programme. Stuck record time now. The idea, the sheer seductive allure of the idea that complicated questions have simple answers. Oh, I blame the parents. Or, what else can you come up with? I don't know. But you see what I mean? The idea that there are simple answers to these questions. You can see why it's seductive. They fit in a tabloid newspaper headline. But my God, they couldn't be further away from the truth. And the more time and energy we expend on kidding each other that complicated questions have simple solutions, I'll bring back national service, then the more kids get let down, the more kids end up in the holes that we've heard described. 5 minutes after 11. So for that reason and a few others, I'm going to stay with this for a little longer. Probably turn our attention later to the Grenfell inquiry, more calls for the judge, the retired judge appointed to lead that inquiry, to remove himself from the fray, and still, on my part at least, more confusion as to why he's managed to alienate so many so quickly. But we'll stay with gangs for the time being, because we're all learning. Jason is in South London. Jason, what made you pick up the phone?
Yeah, good morning, James. Now, basically, I listen to it obviously a lot. I like it. It's very informative.
Thank you.
Just listening to other people phone up and that's quite touching. And where I've been in a position when I'm 38 now. I was in a gang when I was younger. I've been in and out of prison most of my life.
Yeah.
Last 5 years, I managed to be honest, my main reason for it is when people say, this is the reason why they go to prison, or this is the reason why they get in gangs. There's no set one reason.
Sure.
There's a combination and a culmination of from broken homes to families to being with the wrong crowd. But a lot of it stems from, through my experiences, I'm from South London, is like a lot of people end up being in the gangs, they find that comfort blanket because of other things as a child they don't have. No, it's an excuse, but it's definitely a reason. As kids growing up, you see things, you learn from elders. But for me, most of the people that I was in gang with, we were single parent families. Our dad let us down and whatnot, and that kind of like pushed us towards that way. It's not about making an excuse for it, because I know the things that I've been through and what I've done has been wrong. But while I was in and out of prison, I wanted to change, but didn't know how to change. So you go to prison, you come back, you go to, and you see the same people getting older. And you're thinking, what's going on here? But you can't change it. Wanting to change, you might say, then you smoke drugs, so that's the reason why I do a drugs course. Or your one's anger, do an anger course, to what X, Y, Z. But it doesn't always change it. You still got that overriding. The best thing I ever done the last time, I went to a therapeutic prison named Grendon, and I actually went there as a blag to try and get out of prison early. It was the best thing I ever done.
Why?
Even because it made me look at myself. Even now I'm getting emotional. It made me look at myself in so much different ways and changed me. Basically, it was telling me, you've got self-esteem issues. You've got image problems. You've got my fences were robberies. Every time I've done it, I'll do the robbery and buy clothes to make people look at me and think, wow, he's got nice clothes. He's got this to attract the girls and whatnot. And it was just, I've been out 5 years now. I've got a lovely wife. I've been working. It's so sad to see people that I grew up with in the same position.
And until you got to, is it Grendon? Grendel? What was the?
Yeah, Grendon.
Until you got to Grendon, no one had ever helped you see yourself.
People tried to help me, but because of all the pain I had, my dad let me down.
Yes.
So
a lot of people listening, you know this, and I can tell from your emotion that you understand this, but I'm going to point it out anyway. A lot of people listening will be saying, well, my dad let me down too. I never became a robber. Yeah. But I'm just putting that out there for the benefit of the record.
I can handle that. The point is about for me, but when you've been hurt, sadness turns to anger. The anger is a secondary emotion. Before that is the sadness. So there's a brick wall that goes up. You won't let nobody in. You only let people in that you feel or you think you can trust. And throughout your journey, there's people that let you down that you think and what, that you get missed messages, and it hurt. I don't want to use it, I don't want to swear. It kind of matches up your head.
Yes.
So then it's easy. It becomes, for me personally, and I know a lot of people, them or us. Anyone in authority, like we've seen police beating up people, we've seen police, so that kind of confirms what we've been taught before, that they're against us, this, that, and the other, racism, all these pathetic things now that when you look at it now, older, it's not the case, but at the time it feeds it, and on top of it, there's a selfish little boy that wants things, that is prepared to take it, me, from other people, and that's how it kind of like, it's not just one thing, there's so much different aspects to it, it's powerful, it's scary, it's sad.
It is.
But like, it's emotional. I got sorry about getting emotional. But
don't ever apologise for getting emotional, because what you've just described to me is mental conditioning that makes getting emotional a sign of weakness. When you said you build a wall, sadness leads to anger, so you build a wall around the sadness. That causes the problems. Don't ever apologise for getting emotional. That's a sign of how far you've come. But if you hadn't had that help, what I don't understand as a middle-aged man is where does it lead? I mean, surely you either end up dead or in prison. I mean, nobody wins in this world, ultimately.
Not sorry to be cynical, but for me personally, whilst prison is about being punitive, it's not there to rehabilitate people. While they would say, well, rehabilitating, it's on a small, minute part, because most of the courses they do, it's only small level, level 1s or 2s. It's not anything that can take you out and fully get a job. And it's a business. it's a business. So whilst at some stage people do want to help, and all the years in prison, I've mostly found 10% of good. There might be good officers that go there. Once they've been conditioned to the rigmarole of prison, they kind of follow the pack. And if the pack's bad, it's not going to help. And then you go up, and it's a vicious circle. So
and it's getting worse. At risk of sounding like a stuck record, but the experienced officers are leaving and being replaced by much cheaper, younger, less experienced officers who aren't doing it necessarily for the right reasons. All the conversations we have knit together sometimes. But where would you be now if you hadn't got a hold of yourself?
I've been in the same situation. I should carry firearms. It was everything. It's escalated from a small criminal to, I won't say that I was top of the tree, but to, you know what I mean, I've never actually physically hurt someone, but I learned that. But
no, hang on a minute. The people you robbed, you might not have hit them, but you scared you've scarred them for life.
Yeah, of course, that's what I was going to say. So the psychological effect is much worse than actually getting it. So, but I would have went to that stage and beyond. I should justify it when I was younger and whatnot. But yeah, I could have done anything, and that's just the truth of it.
Do you have any children, Jason? Do you have any children?
I've got one due now. I've got one due in 20 days.
Really?
On the 20th, yeah.
What are you going to do 12, 13 years from now if you see your baby following a path that you're familiar with?
Well, me and my missus just moved. We just bought a house. We've got a mortgage. I've moved out of London, and I get up every day at 6 o'clock to get to work, and just I know I'm on the right track. I see people that I grew up with and said, you know, I've already learned anything from you because you're the one that came out of it and do something different rather than people have got. Because all people do is buy a nice car, buy this, and think they're doing better.
Yeah.
But no, they're doing negative. So in 15 years' time, I'll be able to tell my son or daughter where I was and where I am now. I even try to help people by doing mentoring, but where I'm working on, I ain't really got the time, but that's something that I want to go into. I'm doing a degree now, so I'm in counselling to try and see if I can help a lot of people because I can relate to them sort of thing. But
you should do that, man. You should really do that, because you did so much more powerful and valuable coming from someone who's lived it than it is from someone who's just read all the books and done all the exams.
Yeah, of course.
It really is. I just want to know a tiny bit more. You've already been very generous with your time, but a tiny bit more about that word you used, therapeutic, when you talked about a therapeutic prison. What does that mean, Jason?
So basically, for therapy, this prison, Brendan, it teaches you about yourself. Therapy ain't about them guiding you. It ain't about them making you change. It's about you learning about yourself through the experience. So basically, we had on each wing, 40 people. Each group, we had 5 groups, and I think there was groups, a maximum of 8 people, 1 therapist, 1 facilitator, and the lads. And everything about you put on the table. So the first day you say, I'm Jason, I'm in for this XY crime. And you have people from robbers to all sorts of crimes, disgraceful things, like once you realise, just because his crime might be better, worse in prison, no, you're all, so it teaches you to not judge people on that level. So you had paedophiles, you had murderers, you had rapists, you had all sorts of things. But the main thing for me was it put I'll never express people about my life or whatnot. I was constantly saying, I'm this, I'm that. Every day you want to use a group, you have to put your hand up and say, but it teaches you to kind of bring your feelings out into the table. And it brings it out, then it's so much different levels. Once you've been there 3 months, you've got to do you've got to read out your assessment to the wing. Normally, when you do a assessment, you do it in privacy in front of your probation officer, and that's it. And even that is embarrassing. People literally stress themselves out building up to that time.
Sure.
But now you've got to do it on a wing in front of 40 people. People have left therapy for that. And you get so much, but it's the best thing ever, because each time you're doing something, it hurts. That's good for me.
Yeah, of course. And when you said that you only went there because you thought it would be, when you got there, I think, did you use the word scam? Did you say?
Yeah, black.
Black.
Yeah.
Was that so? You have to convince them that you really do want to change, but actually, go on.
Yeah, sorry, no, go on, sorry.
So you, as I understand it, you have to convince them that you really want to change, and you managed to do that, even though deep down inside you didn't think that you did, or you didn't. Is that right?
No, they're not stupid. They're happy to have you. One thing about Grendon, if you go then you're blagging, you would just be there longer. They're happy to have you, but you can't blag them. These are qualified, high professional people. They're not silly. And there's people there. Normally, the minimum time is 18 months. I was there about 3 years. There's people that's been there 5 years, 7 years.
Oh yeah, okay. So they know that, or they need to see genuine improvement and genuine desire to change. Otherwise,
you can't just talk the talk. There's like there's so many different things that happened. One thing before I go, which taught me that I definitely was on the right path. Something happened, there had been confrontation between groups. In your group, you can always express how you feel. You can't threaten nobody, you can't take drugs or anything like that. So one of the guys we used to have, because I used to challenge him, I'm trying to help him, but he weren't ready to be there. And one day it coming with him, he's actually assaulting me. So he's assaulted me when I went looking. I'm not a small fella, I used to do martial arts, I could have ruined him, but what I've done, the first thought I had weren't to retaliate, because I've been in London about a year and a bit by then, was like to step back.
Wow.
And afterwards I felt so embarrassed, but I was taught if someone hits you, you hit them back. I was fighting all against everything I've been taught as a kid. But now I'm in a transition period, but I didn't retaliate. The therapist brought me to themselves and said, you know what? You have shown me how far you've come. A lot of people talk the talk, and you just proved to me, and I hope you prove to yourself where you are. And I couldn't understand it. My missus said, you know what? I'm so proud of you. and as it went by, I went, you know what? I'm right. I don't need to hear that.
And that turned your life on its head. The realising that it took more strength not to swing at him than it did to keep your hands by your side.
100%. Violence don't prove it doesn't achieve nothing. All it does is make it worse. It's not achieving anything.
Hey, you're going to be a great dad, Jason.
Thank you.
You take care. It's 11:16, and before we go to the travel news, I just want to read you something from the Grendon prison. You just heard it there, right? Proof of the pudding. Horse's mouth. I'm going to read you a phrase, and then I'm going to ask you a question. This is a description of the prison that Jason just described. It's known as a democratic therapeutic community. There are other prisons where similar services provided: Dovegate, Gartree, Send and Warren Hill, if you're in that world. But just listen to this. Democratic therapeutic communities provide group-based therapy within a social climate which promotes positive relationships, personal responsibility, and social participation. Therapeutic communities address a range of offender needs, including interpersonal relationships, emotional regulation, self-management, and psychological well-being. Now, let Jason's words and Lee's and other callers, let them just echo in your head a bit. Especially Jason, because he has described precisely what happened to him when he went to that prison. Democratic therapeutic communities provide group-based therapy. Now ask yourself what a Daily Mail columnist would do with those words. Who's reflecting reality? Jason, who's lived it, or the Daily Mail columnist, who's mocking and deriding and maligning it, and probably employing the phrase at some point in proceedings, political correctness gone mad? It's 11:17. And look, I'm not going to get all blooming po-faced and worthy about it. Just learning. I'm learning a lot. You might not be, but I am. I'm learning a lot about gangs. And I'm learning a lot about people. And the more you learn about people, then if you're anything like me, or you look at the world in anything like the way I try to do every day, the more you learn about people, the more you realise how much they've got in common. How powerful phrases like that, but for the grace of God go I, or walk a mile in someone else's shoes to understand what their life is like. Doesn't mean that you don't abhor criminality or believe that people should be properly punished, but with rehabilitation, the likelihood of them needing to be punished again is reduced. And Jason, the last caller, absolutely, categorically proving that point, I'd have thought, beyond any reasonable doubt. Of course, unreasonable doubt is something that nobody gets to control or legislate for. So I'm going to carry on. I mean, we started off with two questions. How hard is it not to be in a gang? And I wondered if it was a bit crass at the time, but it's proved to be anything but. The second question is, what is a gang? Wilson's in Croydon. Wilson, what would you like to say?
I'd like to say, first of all, I mean, when you say what is a gang, that is the question, isn't it?
I think it is, actually, yeah.
That always sticks with me. Is reality is stained by perception, and I guess it depends on how you perceive a gang. When I hear people talking about gangs, it always feels like there's a sort of Americanization of it, like Crips and Blood. And don't get me wrong, there are gangs in the UK, they have names and they have gang members, but for example, for me, people would have perceived me maybe to be in a gang when I was younger, but I didn't see it as a gang. I just saw it as my group of friends. And don't get me wrong, we've done bad things, but we've done everything together.
Well, just I can't let people gloss over that phrase, don't get me wrong, we've done bad things. What things? What did you do?
Robberies. I guess some people sold drugs, different criminal things.
So you were, to any pretty objective description, you were a member of a criminal gang. But
No, because because our sole purpose for being together was not crime. So you can't call it a member of a criminal gang if a criminal gang is a gang of people who get together to commit crime. When we were together, no doubt we committed crime, but that wasn't our sole purpose of being together.
So if you'd been in a different universe or a different socio-economic group or a different postcode, you'd still have been hanging out together, but you might have been playing croquet.
I mean, well, we played football together, we went raving together, we chased girls together, we did everything together, and that did include crime. So,
yeah, all right. I understand the distinction. I don't know that I'm signing up for it 100%, but you're sort of it's chicken and egg, isn't it? I mean, if the crime came first and then you got together, you're a criminal gang. But
and that's the thing. The crime didn't come first.
Okay.
The crime came afterwards. So we were friends first, and all the football and stuff was what we used to do. But then at some point, there's people like you mentioned before, older that are making money. So when you're the youngest set of friends and you live in a neighborhood where there's older people who are already in crime, eventually you're going to see what they're doing. And not everyone will say, oh, yeah, let's go more. But maybe one person within your friendship group starts hanging around with the older kids, and then they start getting involved in some of the shadier aspects of, criminality, whatever you want to call it. And then eventually you all start to get drawn in. But you're all friends, so you all sort of, I don't know if you're following who's leading, but everyone sort of gets involved in the same thing. And then...
What if someone stands up? What if someone says, what if someone finds the stuff that you glossed over a moment ago, the drug dealing, the robberies? What if one of your group finds that repellent? What if one of them really does find it utterly unacceptable behaviour? What happens to them?
I can't speak for every...
No, of course.
But for my group of friends, no one was forced to do anything they didn't want to do. I mean, there are people that will try and put pressure on other people, but, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. You come play football with us. If you don't want to come and do anything else, don't come. But... So you would get ostracised in a way. You might not get forced to commit crimes, but if you weren't joining in with the stuff that was criminal, you might be alienated from the stuff that wasn't. You would in a sense, because while we're doing the criminal stuff, for example, if we, decided to hit a bookies or something like that, when we're all getting paid and we're all spending our money or we're going out with our money, you're not going to have any. So in that sense, you will get ostracized. And when we're buying our new clothes and whatnot, you're probably not going to have any. So there comes in that pressure because of appearance, and you want to look good and you want to, appear to have money and appear to be doing well. Then that might drive you to get in, but not because, you can't hang out with us unless you're doing this. But there's other ways that you can get pressured into it just by not being involved. You miss out on some of the stuff that appears to be luxuries and the fruits of the crimes that you're committing.
Yes. I mean the trappings, as it were, and the younger and the more impressionable you are, the more seductive any path to getting your hands on that sort of stuff can appear. What I mean, have you stopped now? Are you out of that world?
I'm out now.
How come? What happened?
Really, I'll say my mum. I went to jail and
for robbery.
No, for stabbing someone, actually.
Right.
But, pardon? When I was 16.
Yeah.
And ironically enough, I got stabbed the week after. And it's my mum that said to me, if you do something to someone, you pay for it to happen tenfold onto you. And literally, that's how it happened. So, there you go. So
you were both a stabber and a stab victim in the space of 7 days.
But I got stabbed a lot worse than I did the stabbing. There you go. But I went to jail for the stabbing that I did do. And this is why I say when you talk about a gang, for example,
yes.
When I got stabbed, a lot of people were ready to go back up. It was in Tottenham it happened. A lot of people, my friends and friends of friends, were ready to go up to Tottenham to go and get revenge. Now, this wasn't a gang thing. Like, none of these people, I could say, were in a...
You've got a problem with the word gang. It offends your sensibilities, doesn't it?
It does, because...
See, that makes me laugh, Wilson, in a way, because it's just a name, and you don't like being called a gangster. It's not a gang. It's because you feel these bonds of loyalty and friendship that are somehow being diminished and polluted by using the word gang, don't you?
Because most of these people I'm still friends with now.
Okay.
We don't commit any crime, so are we still a gang? I don't know.
Oh, good point. Yeah, I do see what you mean. I just kind of looking at it from the outside rather than the inside. And on the inside, I can see why you would find the word a little bit unnecessary. But that clearly, what you were doing and what you were in, clearly was what would put you in the category of gang in this story we're discussing today. But just take me back quick. When you were stabbed, your friends felt a need to go and avenge you.
Yeah, and so we were going to go up to Tottenham and but some of them were close friends, some of them were just from the area, so that could be conceived as, a gang going to get revenge.
Yes.
But ironically enough, I got arrested on the day that we're meant to go up there for something that I did previously. So it never panned out that way.
And that was why there was. I mean, so if you hadn't been arrested then, you probably would have been arrested later after getting involved in this revenge trip up to Tottenham. So you went to jail. What changed? I mean, because a lot of people come out of jail more hardened than they were when they went in. But we've spoken to a couple of people today.
I think my mum, because when people are, I was in jail for over 2 years.
Yes.
Obviously your friends come and visit at first, and then they write a couple letters at first, but then they stopped writing, they stopped visiting. But my mum visited me every day. Well, not every day, but every time she could get a visiting order, she wrote to me every week, like without fail. And the support when I came out, it just made me feel like I got to do something for her.
But she was there for you before you went to jail. She was there for you every day before you went to jail.
Yeah, but I didn't appreciate it then. You just think what your mum's meant to do. You got all your freedoms, and you got all your friends, and you got open, all the distractions of the outside world. But when you got only yourself, and it's funny because I heard something in the news about someone winning a case for being locked up for 23 hours a day.
Yeah,
that was the standard lockup when I was in jail. So I don't know. Maybe I should start doing. But anyway, she was all I had. So I started to appreciate the letters. I still got them now, and
So you just had you've kept a box of your mum's letters. Does she know that?
No, she's passed now. So
I'm sorry to hear that, Wilson.
No, this is why things happen for a reason, because if I didn't go now, sometimes when I'm not feeling inspired and I can always read her letters. I've always got her to talk to me, so I don't even regret anything that I've done, because, I wish I maybe could have done things differently, but I'm happy with what I have. I'm happy with the life I have, so.
And how hard was it when you came out of prison to pursue a different path? Did you have to move geographically? Did you have to take yourself out of that environment?
You see, it's weird because it wasn't that difficult. I guess I'm a relatively intelligent person. I was always quite good academically, but this is the thing with crime and gangs, if you want to use that word, but it's really nuanced.
I'm going to use the word, man. It's the only word I've got. What word do you want to use?
We can use it just as an all-encompassing.
All right. Do you want me to do that thing with my fingers? Do you want me to do that quote thing with my fingers when I say gangs? You'll never know. I'm on the radio.
So, but when you're, like I said, I'm quite an intelligent guy academically, but it's not just about, committing crimes. It's really hard to say when I say perception, because what's right and what's wrong, there's no what's right intellectually. And there was a guy who, when you just had, I really, respected his call when he said things that feel right are wrong, or
that was Lee.
When you're young, you know what's wrong in terms of the law. You know what's wrong in terms of what adults say. But when you're doing things like robberies, it doesn't really feel wrong. I can't even lie and say, there's a part of me that thought, no, this is wrong. It just felt like, well, this is it. I'm getting money. And then your reordering of priorities in prison, and you reorder your sense of right and wrong as well. That's a powerful thing you said about your mum. It really is, and I thank you for it. You've made me incredibly late for the news, Wilson, which I think is a testament to the power of your call. It's 11:33, and we are talking about gangs, although perhaps that's not the correct word to be using, Wilson. I can't think of a better one at the moment. And I've spoken to a succession of men who deserve nothing but condemnation for things that they've done in their past. Some, not many, to be honest. We seem to be very slowly culling the sort of bovine contributor to the programme and dealing more and more with thoughtful people. But one or two people are asking, what about the victims? And I have to tell you that if you're living in a world where sympathy and support for victims of crime isn't automatically and deliberately delivered, then I really feel for you. In my world, it goes without saying that you have enormous sympathy for victims of crime. It doesn't even need to be repeated out loud. But if you want to stop crimes being committed, you're better off talking to criminals than victims. So I really do feel for you if your worldview is so bleak that you don't see automatically sympathy and support for victims of crime when you hear conversations like this. That's a horrible place to be in, and I will do my best to help you come out of that dark, bleak world and come into the light. And it's coming into the light that criminals do when they get rehabilitated, and that's good news for everybody in society. And yet you still struggle
struggle really to. I mean, for me, it's not hard to imagine being stupid and ending up being dangerous if you made bad choices in your youth. So an interesting tweet here from Lucy, who's 24 years old and describes herself as, let me get this absolutely right, because I don't know about this, Lucy, to be honest. It'll be interesting what other people think about it. I grew up in Portsmouth, she writes. Hi, James. I grew up in Portsmouth. I went to a private school and I'm from a middle-class background. I had a bunch of mates I used to do everything with, and sometimes we committed crime, dealing, stealing, and then she adds, and wild wheeling, which I presume involves some form of automotive offences. And she adds, I've never been accused of being in a gang. And then that adds a different facet to Wilson's objection to the word as well, doesn't it? The idea that if you're urban and working class and relatively poor and you are dealing, stealing and, forgive me, I'm 45 years old, wild wheeling, then you're in a gang. And yet, if you're a 24-year-old privately educated girl in Portsmouth doing exactly the same things with your bunch of friends, somehow people wouldn't employ the word criminal gang. I get it, actually. It's a little bit more nuanced than perhaps I allowed. 11:39 is the time. Carl's in Tottenham. A lot of calls from Tottenham. Tottenham and Croydon, actually, seem to be dominating the conversation today. Carl, what would you like to say?
James, I'm a little bit nervous, man. I hope you can forgive me.
Of course.
It's the first time I've ever rang a radio station.
Well, thank you.
I don't even know where to start, to be honest with you. I mean...
Tell me about yourself. Tell me about you.
So, I mean, I grew up in a place outside London, up north, and I come from a working... Like, my mum was a very, very hard-working lady. She had 2 or 3 jobs since I was really young. Alcoholic father who was just, you know, the usual alcoholic, you know, like had his severities and whatever. But I think my turning point was when I got to my teens, because my dad was a very abusive man. He used to, you know, physically and mentally abuse my mum. You know, to this day, I still don't understand, you know, why it took so long for my mum to reach a decision why she did. But anyway, the turning point for me was when I got to a stage when I was in my teens that I got strong enough, you know. I actually had the physical strength and you know, to actually stop him, if that makes any sense. Like, there was an incident one time.
Makes perfect sense.
In the house, and he got really drunk this one particular day. Sorry.
That's all right.
And he pulled the knife out, and my mum was screaming, and he actually stabbed her in the arm. And he was so drunk. I honestly, like, I had older brothers, and everyone was so scared. And I literally had, you know what? I said, I'm willing to, like, do what needs to be done. So I just, you know, I ended up taking a knife off him, you know, literally physically manhandling him. And that was the point that he actually realized that he couldn't do that no more.
He saw something in your eyes. He saw something in your eyes.
He saw something in my eye that literally, I said, you are finished, mate. And if I see you in this house, you are, like, literally, the whole family was just up in arms and whatever. And, like, that was the point that he left the house. I said to my mum, look, it's either him or me. Either I'll leave the house. And she realized what I meant, because we was all like that. We had young, you know, children, whatever. Like, there was 5 of us in the family. And then once we done that, we moved out of there. We lived in Liverpool. We came to London because we had a few family members here. And we got to a particular area. I mean, you know, when you don't know nobody and you're a teenager and you got gangs of little kids and whatever, and, you know, it's just like, man, James, I can tell you the amount of times I got egged. I could tell you the amount of times someone threw water bombs at me. I could tell you, you know, like, when growing up, and I thought, I let so many things slide. And then there was one point where somebody said to me, you know what, that's because they don't know you and they don't fear you or they whatever. And I said, what do you mean fear me? Like, what have I done to them for them to fear me? He said, listen, man, fear lasts longer than love, you know. And I said to myself, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? He said, look, if you do something crazy, literally all these guys will respect you. And I thought, okay. So from day one, literally whoever even said anything to me, I have these little groups, there was times where I had no fear, like, literally, whether I lived or died, because I wasn't going to live like this forever, you know, like, could be being, you know, beaten up or mugged or this or that I would approach a gang of youth, 5 people, and I'll literally fight it out. Whether they've got knives, whether they had, I'll go home, go get 2 blades. I didn't give a monkey, you know, like, I did not care. And then to the point where they started saying, this guy's crazy, you know, like, don't mess with this guy. And then once I had that little bit of fear from people, I knew I can capitalize on that.
How did it make you feel? How did it make you feel?
Made, like, you know what? For me, that power is just, you can't even describe it. It's better than any drug. It's to the point, James, where I got to a stage where I don't even know, like I remember when I was maybe 18 years old, honest to God, James, at the point that I thought to myself, I'm a gangster, you know, like literally, I used to look in the mirror, and James, you know, like how some of these, I don't even know what to say, like what I can say on the radio, but it's just, I had so much weapons, so much arsenal, so much, you know how you see all these rappers that are, or these guys that are on the street selling drugs or whatever, that would buy Rolexes or buy this 40 grand watches. That was nothing to me. All of these guys that used to work for me or I used to work with, they knew every time I made £10,000, I would buy 2 guns. They knew I had so much, like literally, I can go on a mini war and I will last for a good month with ammo, with guns, with knives, with people, with like literally. And you'd
be fighting for the right to sell drugs or to have your people selling drugs in that area.
And that was the whole essence of the game. When I was James, when I was 18 years old, I swear to you, I don't even know what to say. It's like I remember making £10,000 in one day. Right, and he got so much over the years that I couldn't even count it, James. At the age of 20, I had 2 machines that used to count the money, because we used to spend like literally half a day counting money, putting it in rubber bands, putting it away, tucking it. You know, it was ridiculous to the point. And in all of that, it's like I'm trying to mastermind. Right, let me take over this bit. Let me do this bit. That guy has to work for me. This guy's not the right. He needs to get, you know, dealt with. Blah blah blah. Like it was mental, the hunger, the power, and all because from the younger generation to the older generation, I showed no fear. Even like I'm dealing with 50, 60-year-old men who are like, you know, real organized crime internationally, and they know. Like I said, look, if you screw me, I will take you out. I don't care. I don't care whether you've got a million people behind you. I don't care. I don't, whether I live or die, I don't care. I'm telling you.
Here's the thing, right? There could be people listening to this program now who think that what you're describing, there will be, who think that it sounds glamorous.
Absolutely.
But you were a violent criminal.
I was a violent, but the thing is, it's like I had, like in my own mind, it was the trade that I was in. If you were soft in what you're doing, oh my God, James, you are absolutely finished.
I don't struggle. I don't struggle to understand that. I just struggle slightly with the. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there still seems to be some pride in your voice.
No. It's not about pride. I tell you, James. You know when it all changed for me?
Go on.
I had a really, like a really crazy incident, right? And at that time, I was in my mid-20s. I had some children, and I got to a stage where it didn't matter no more. It did not matter. Money was nothing. You know, I looked at myself and I thought to myself, because it was a choice, James. Despite all of this that happened to me, I never ever saw the inside of a police cell. I've never actually been arrested for anything in my life. Would local police officers would have known who you were? They would have known who me, but they had nothing on me. They had no connections with anybody. They couldn't prove nothing. I've never ever been, you know, like they knew my name, they knew this, that, the other, but I had so many people under me that were doing so many things that
So what changed? What changed?
So what changed for me was, I always knew from growing up from a young age that having no father figure, I really felt it. And I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I really felt it. It really hurt me. You know, going to sports day and everyone else is there with their dads and whatever, and my dad's in a pub getting, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So I promised myself, you know, and the stage that it got to when my youngest reached, I think about 2, I thought to myself, I'll never want that for them. I'll never want that for them. And I got to a stage where an incident happened where it was literally a life or death situation. I was either going to go out all guns blazing, Tony Montana, and take people out and serve life imprisonment for what? For money and be away from my kids. And that literally changed it all, James. It literally, you can't even imagine. I literally came out of this incident and And I thought to myself, and you know what I did, James? I swear to you, there was 10 years ago, there was a massive knife and gun amnesty, you know, to the point where I actually surrendered. It was the biggest seizure that the police have ever had, 22 firearms.
And what?
Sorry, James.
Go on.
And do you know why that is? It's because I thought to myself, A, I don't want to be a part of this, and B, I don't want to be a cause of this. And if
but you'd already hurt a lot of people and ruined a lot of lives by this point.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you know what? I got to the stage where I just wanted out. I just wanted closure. I went.
And how do you absorb the change in lifestyle? How do you go from having tens of thousands of pounds in your pocket?
You know what? Honestly, James, I've moved out of London. I live in a remote town out of London. I'm happy. I've got 4 kids. I work. Understand? I feel the happiest I've ever felt. The happiest. And you know what? I literally earn about 500 quid a week. And I'm the happiest. I come home every single day. I do my kids' homework with them. I follow up on their school. I'm always there whenever they need me. I'm always trying to be supportive and be proactive and whatever, and leave all of that behind. Because, James, it's like, I remember growing up, there was this song by this rapper, right? And it always resonated with me when I was a kid. And he said, a drug dealer's destiny is reaching a key. Everybody's looking for something. And that is the truth. All of these little kids that are going out, they're dreaming about, oh yeah, I'm going to get to a kilo. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to be the man on the streets. I'm going to run the biggest gang. And it's all a big, massive mirage.
And that is the point of your call, because a lot of people are wondering, well, what is the point of this call? And that is the point of it. Is it according to these rules by which these people live? You won.
Yeah.
And you can say now with your hand on your heart that earning a very modest living, but with love and family in your life, is 100 times better than actually being top of the tree. I understand massively.
That. It's like literally, it's beyond, like, you can't even put money on it, really.
Could you see yourself ever trying to help people who are stuck in the...
I do. I've worked in youth clubs, I've worked with local councils and helping kids and whatever. And you know what? I've taken loads of kids off the streets. I've told so many people. And you know, when they see an older guy, they say, oh, what do you know about this? And I'm breaking it down to them, they're saying, oh, that's what okay, you know. And it's crazy. And I've stopped people with knives. I've stopped kids, you know, in the youth club. Oh, I'm going to go shank this guy. And I'm telling them, what are you going to get out of it? What you're gonna, you know, like, literally, you don't even see, because that one little stabbing can cost someone's life. It could take someone's son away. It could take someone's brother away. It could take your brother away. How would you feel? You're thinking, trying to prove something to somebody else.
What are you frightened of?
Me, you know what it is? It's like, I think growing up in this kind of, the most frightening thing is your past catching up with you, and you don't know when that is. You know what I mean? Like, I've moved far away from London to be away from everything, but I'm always wary, innit? Do you know? I'm always on edge, on guard, because I've got a family. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it just left with. When you didn't have your family, you weren't frightened of anything. So what you're frightened of now is losing what you've got, and everything you've got that you value is utterly different from all the stuff you had when you were a gangster. Yeah.
Wow. You're right.
Yeah. You know what? I haven't told anyone this, you know, that, and I'm telling half of London or half of the UK.
It's only me. I'm glad you did, because it was a long call. It was a long story, and sometimes during it, Carl, I'm not going to lie to you, I wondered where we were going. It's why I picked you up on sounding a little bit proud, perhaps, at times. But I get it now. I understand why you rang in, and I'm really grateful to you for doing so. Not as grateful as some parents will be, who can tell your story to their children. I'm incredibly short of time. My apologies. And we actually haven't taken many calls today, even though we've been discussing this topic for 2 hours. Every individual story has been given room, which I think was important, but it means I'm going to have to apologise to some people who didn't manage to get on. Last word, I think, back to Croydon from Tottenham, back down south to Croydon, where Dean has called from. Dean, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. I'm a big fan of the show.
Thank you.
You'll have to excuse me, my brain's a little bit scrambled from listening to the previous calls.
Mine too.
Brought back a lot of a lot of memories.
Well, not for me, but my brain is scrambled, but not by memory. So let's be absolutely clear about that.
Yeah. So I just wanted to sort of go back to the initial question, which was why is it difficult to leave a gang? And again, if that's what you want to call it, because it's not really exactly a gang. You know, it sort of starts off really as a group of friends when you're younger, and you know, you're sort of as innocent as any child can be at that age, and then it seems to be a point in life where, you know, you finish school, you may be uneducated, you're not working, and on this group of friends living in these areas and estates turns into a sort of gang, if you like, for many different reasons.
I get that now. I didn't get that 2 hours. I didn't even get that an hour ago, but I get that now.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, and then it happens so quickly, and you start off, like I say, quite an innocent person, and then something bad happens within your group of friends, and you almost sort of stick by each other through those bad times and support each other through it. And the problem is, you know, like you said, this whole postcode thing as well.
Yes.
I think a big part of that is to do with the fact that if you do travel into a different area, it seems as though other areas are wary of people from other areas because of mugging.
Yes.
I think that's initially why you get this issue. So they're wary of you, and if you don't know anyone, if you're not associated with anyone in a different area, then you suddenly you become a bit of a target yourself.
Whereas if you are associated, then there might be a comeuppance if you're targeted.
It's almost like you're okay. You can stay in Hackney, you know, because I grew up in Tottenham. And we used to get a lot of people coming into our area to try and mug us.
Right.
So if you're on your own, then you're going to get mugged. But if you're around 3, 4, 5 different people, then you're not going to be.
Even if they're doing stuff that you don't approve of, you're safer in numbers. I mean, there's a reason why it's a figure of speech, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And for me personally, the reason why I left the gang is because I just couldn't deal with the stuff that my friends were getting up to. It was heartbreaking to see the sort of stuff they were doing to other people, and and I'll just put that down to the fact that my mum and dad brought me up to understand what was right and wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas my friends didn't have father figures in their lives and stuff like that. So I think for them it was a lot harder to make a general understanding of what is right and wrong.
I mean, you're making excuses for them, as I would expect you to do as their friend, but there'll be plenty of people who had absent fathers or violent home lives who didn't go down a path of criminality. So it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. How hard was it, briefly, because I'm very late for the news again?
So it was very difficult to leave.
Was it?
As I left the gang, I became a target. I was no longer part of this family. It was hard because I was missing my friends. And also...
why were you a target? Because people don't want anyone to realise that there are alternatives to doing what they're doing, or...
No, because when you live on an estate, you can't just leave your house. It's not like you just leave your house and you're safe. You know, you could literally, 2 seconds down the road, bump into someone and they'll try and hurt you.
And so you no longer you didn't have anyone at your back, as it were,
I lost my power.
You lost your power.
I didn't have a group of friends around me to like you say, power in numbers.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that is, right? And then my house got burgled a number of times.
My
family were being threatened, and my only choice at this point was to either go back in to the gang or leave. And we just sold the house for peanuts, didn't make any money on it, my family and everyone, and then we just moved to a different area. And then from then on, getting into work, I think this is the key thing here, is getting into work, keeping busy, because all these other callers are saying it's the same thing. You've got nothing to do, you're hanging around, you start off as an innocent kid, and then there's these older guys that are in crime, and they become these role models.
And there is nothing else there. Dean, I'm sorry for hurrying you along, but I'm 3 minutes late for the news, and I made a promise at the beginning of the year that I'd change this. It's not going well. I'm glad that your promise to change has gone rather better than mine. It is just coming up to 12:03.